Hello everyone, my name is Jeremy Mosier. I'm currently a traditional reservist at a large tanker base working as a instructor and evaluator on the KC-46 refueling tanker, and I also fly for a major airline. Recently, I had the opportunity to interview a respected commander of our squadron about a challenging ethical issue he had faced during his career. And it involved balancing mission requirements with the well-being of his personnel. The particular situation that he gave was during a high ops tempo deployment. He had to decide whether to extend duty hours for a critical mission while knowing many of his airmen and aircrew were experiencing fatigue and stress. He emphasized mission success demanded additional effort, but pushing personnel too hard risked safety, morale, and the long-term success and readiness of the squadron. The commander and his leadership team ultimately decided to adjust the mission schedule to distribute the workload more evenly and implemented additional rest periods. They did all this while communicating openly with the team about why certain demands were unavoidable. Applying the Loud model in this situation, locating the situation, so it was during that high ops tempo deployment, he had to decide about extending duty hours for that critical mission while knowing that many of his pilots and boom operators were experiencing fatigue and stress. The options that he laid out for himself and his leadership team, who he later talked to about it, they considered the various options, which were continuing as scheduled, adjusting the schedule, or canceling those missions and sorties. The weight of all of this, he consulted with his leadership team. They evaluated the risk versus necessity and looked at all angles that they could to try to come up with the best plan, and they sought out the input from the affected personnel while keeping operational priorities in mind. Lastly, the decide portion, what the commander and his team decided to do was they adjusted the mission schedule. They tried to distribute the workload more evenly amongst the crews, and in doing so, they were also able to implement an additional rest periods or days off for these affected crews. And they did all this while continuing to communicate openly with the team about why certain demands were unavoidable. Sometimes, and I like this portion of it, because sometimes if you're telling a certain individual that's working for you something, if you give them the why, more times than not, they understand and they are able to transition into that new way forward with little resistance, I guess. Basically, you give them that why. But anyway, the mission was successful, and by prioritizing that transparency and fairness, he was able to maintain trust and cohesion within the squadron going forward. As I self-reflect over what we talked about on this, the commander's reasoning was mostly clear, demonstrates the elements of both consequentialism and virtuous, and a little bit of deontology. As far as consequentialism, the commander weighed the outcomes of that decision-balanced mission success against the well-being, the morale of his personnel. Adjusting that schedule and distributing that workload more evenly, I think, provided more rest opportunities, and it reflects a focus on achieving the best overall outcome for both mission and the team being emphasized. As far as virtuous, the commander modeled virtues like integrity, fairness, and responsibility. I really, again, like responsibility. So first and foremost, he can put his responsibility for taking care of his people at the front of making this hard decision, and I like that. I also liked how he emphasized on the transparency, and I think that equated to the trust that his people probably leave him within him, and maintaining that cohesion. And that just demonstrates his moral character uh, as far as a guiding leadership. Deontology, while in the commander considered duty and operational obligations, the decision was not strictly based on following rules or regulations. Now, excuse me, I will note that at no time did they ever violate any rules or regulations of how we operate. It just was going outside of what the norm amount of hours that we like our crews to fly. So again, by doing that, if he would have just done that and not said anything, I think a lot of people would have been upset. But because he had provided that why, I think it was able to set better with his subordinates. I feel like I would have done the same thing as a commander, with some subtle differences. The only thing that really came to mind, and I tried to put myself in the same situation because on several deployments this had happened to me, where you fly 3 or 4 or 5 days in a row and they give you a day off, but more times than not it's just resetting you, so your rest periods aren't really good. So the fact that they tried to work in additional rest periods, I liked that, because that allowed his crews to at least have 24 to 48 hours off to really get reset into their normal sleep cycle and get some real good rest and relaxation. The only thing additional I think I would have done is I would have reached out to some of the sister squadrons. There may be 2 or 3 or 4 different squadrons there, and sometimes they have people that are sitting around or have extra days off that they could supplement and help in. But I liked what he did. The other thing is sometimes you can look into what some of these individuals are doing on their downtime. We have a lot of younger airmen, and sometimes they're not utilizing their rest periods properly. For example, staying up late, watching TV, playing video games on their computers, things such as that. But after reviewing his interview notes and reading some more on the past lessons, it's clear to me that this commander's ethical reasoning is a great example of consequentialism and virtue ethics. He emphasized outcomes and moral character over strict adherence to rules, and I think that yielded positive dividends for him in this particular situation. His first reaction to stop and try to really analyze the situation allowed him to take the appropriate action. Thank you.